Today is the 8th July 2026. I'm doing another practice of keeping better eye contact, using my hands a little bit more, seeing how it feels, and especially trying to be a little more comfortable with it. The topic I want to talk about is how I work on negative experiences. Negative experiences are in all of our lives. I have a lot of negative experiences in my life. Right in the last few days, I just had a lot of demotivation, just feeling very down. Wasn't really sure if I was that stressed. I had a lot of muscle tensions. And I felt, especially in the last day, that I was running against the wall and just feeling very demotivated in doing anything. That is a very simple but also important negative experience. And there are many negative experiences like that, and in different ways, in other formats, and in other aspects, and bigger and smaller. It doesn't really matter that much. Negative experiences, as I have learned in my life, at the end of the day, are an experience. How something is in life very much depends on how I perceive it. When I feel like I'm doing something and not getting something out of it, that creates a feeling of demotivation that could come from having the wrong expectations. Am I even expecting? Are my expectations to succeed in something too high? Am I just having a wrong approach in it? And the way I think about something, the way I perceive something is very important in how something feels and what the experience then will be. But not everything is just a matter of perception. Like it can very much be, but there are basically two ways that I can work on negative experience or in general on experiences. A lot of experiences experiences are created from interactions in our life. That means there's some parts of me, there's some aspects of me involved in experience, and most of the time there's some aspects of our environments involved in our experiences. Both of these aspects are not necessarily easily changed, but they can also be changed. There's one approach that one can take in changing an experience, and that is either changing the environment or changing myself. That means changing how I behave, changing how I interact with something. So changing the way that I interact with environment to get a different result and get a different experience. Or influencing the environment so it does something other, or it changes, so the experience will be a different one. That's very much an aspect to change kind of something outside, and that is the aspect that I have learned, at least in my life, is the least under my control. Changing the environment can be very much out of our hands. There can be a lot of cases where we cannot do anything, where I cannot do anything to change any kind of outside environmental influence, whatever that is, if it's another person, if it's a system that we live in, the state, a social circle, the family, friends, work, whatever. There are a lot of cases where we can't at least easily influence or change at all an outside environmental factor in our life. But even then, looking at, okay, if I can change the environment, I change myself, even that's not always possible. Changing myself is not as easy as we think, and as I often thought it could be or it would be. We are shaped by our lives, by our environments, very much, and the way we think, the way we perceive, the way we do something, changing that is not easy, because like in all things in life and in this world, there's some slowness. I forgot the word. What is the English word? Never mind. I will not remember the word now. Okay. What was I talking about? I was talking about the changing myself, changing who we are, or how we can even behave in certain ways. It's not as easy. There are a lot of cases, there are very tight corridors that we actually walk on, and that we have to walk through, and where like navigation here, like immediate change of ourselves, it's often more so a nudge than a change. Changing myself or changing ourselves is more so a long-term thing. and that's how we would have to approach that. So that's a strategy that is very difficult to like change in like a moment. Like when I'm in a negative experience, changing myself will not change this experience. It might change the next one. Maybe not that, but like the next thing, like in 10 times one, or like in a year, or like in 2 years. That is something that can be more expected than changing how I behave right now and changing with that the experience that I have. But this would be the side of, okay, I could change either myself or more so an outside factor to change an experience. So, like for example, in the last days, I was very demotivated in trying to learn art and trying to learn art for like video game product, for game development. And I was kind of feeling running against the wall. Changing the environment would be getting a new tool that's like easier for me to use, getting another software, or getting using some kind of course that actually teaches me that in a way that's better for me. That would be a way to approach it from the outside aspect. The other area where I can influence how negative experience or experience in general are is not so on changing actually the mechanic of an experience, but changing the perception. How do I look? That's tied to in changing myself, but it's very much in just how do I perceive something. How do I perceive something is insanely important for an experience. An experience is vastly different if I experience in one way or another. There can be a huge gap between just two different ways of perceiving something, while the thing that the situation that we're in is not actually happening. Like we can have the same situations, we can be in the same situation and just experience them very differently depending on how we perceive them. So changing our perception, change how we think about something, change what we sense of that, what we make with that, can hugely change something without the actual thing changing. That's something that I found is for me extremely important. Finding ways to changing my experience, making it more positive, moving away from negative experiences, not by changing the issue necessarily or the thing in the world that demotivates me or that causes me mental struggles or whatever it is, but by looking at it at a different way, by perceiving it a different way. And this is not just a thing, not just about perception, like in the last years, we go back to my demotivation in the last days, not in the last years, in the last days. That's not just about looking at it from a different angle. Yeah, now I lose track of my thoughts. Nice. Where do I want it to go? And I'm not keeping eye contact. Trying to look left or right or somewhere else to think. It's a difficult topic. It's first very abstract what I'm talking about, because I'm not playing very much with any examples and haven't prepared a lot for this talk, as I pretty much always do. So it's not about this, it's about eye contact and my hand usage, and which I think is going decently. At least I'm making a little bit progress and getting a little bit more aware. So I was talking about perception. What I'm talking about is that the issue is not just necessarily in the perception, like I just don't perceive it as not being demotivated. It's a big part of expectations. Like from like example in the last days, it's very much what are my expectations of how I'm going to learn art and what I can do with it and what I'm doing with it. First, expectations drive our behavior. So if I expect, like I did a little bit in my last, where I tried to do a little bit too much without knowing what I'm doing. And so I wasn't even able to do anything. I tried to walk a path that I'm not able to walk on. And so I got frustrated with that. Of course, I got frustrated when I do something that I'm not able to do. And I don't know how to do it. So I was a little bit too unplanned, to avoid this, to go at this from a different, to change that experience. I need to change the approach. I would have needed to change the approach, be a little bit more planned, lower potentially my expectations, or not even have to lower them, but change them, make them a little bit more realistic. A lot of times negative experience come very much from disalignments of what I think is happening, or what I think is the reality, what I can do or what I cannot do, what I'm actually able to do. A lot of our negative experience, at least in my experience, comes from not being aligned with reality. I mean, we're never aligned with reality, but being very disaligned from reality is a very simple and straightforward way to all kinds of negative experiences. And what else did I wanted to say? What was on my list? I think I covered the first 2 points. I should be on the third. Something like that. I don't even know where I want to go with this. It also doesn't matter, actually. My structure has already gone out of the window. Not enough structure for this topic. Not enough preparation. Just wanted to talk a little bit about it. So because the time, I think, is still... Do I even set the timer? Not sure. I didn't even set the timer. Amazing. Good job me. Messing up everything today. So then let's just wrap up with a last thought. That is not just about perception. The experiences, how I can work with experiences, not just in how I can work, not just how I can perceive it, but a lot of experience in my case are mental issues of my past. They're just things where my feelings have learned to do something in a bad way that's not right in the here and now. And so I have a lot of negative experiences where I can knowable say that it's kind of difficult to work with them in the here and now, because there's nothing actually in the here and now and in the situation causes the negative experience that I have. It's more so just something that trained my whole feeling and how my feelings are judging things and how they're perceiving things, and then how they're triggering negative experiences in a lot of way. So, but I also can ignore it. Like, it would be nice to just ignore them because they're just wrong, but I can't. So I have to unlearn them, their bad behaviors, and that takes a lot of time. And they create a lot of frustration and just negative feelings in my life. And so one of the aspects that I learned, especially with such negative experience, where I can very confidently say they are not founded in the here and now, and I don't actually have to address any kind of source in the here and now. I can't ignore them because they're emotions, but in a way that's kind of the direction. And it's not about ignoring emotions, it's about working with them. How do I deal with a negative experience that I have that doesn't have a grounding in the here and now? And one thing that I really learned is, first, I can't experience that many emotions and experiences at a time. And when it comes to controlling experiences and feelings, it's very much about taking control and being proactive with them, about not just saying, okay, I'm in a situation, I'm doing something, and what I feel and what the experience that I have is then that what I have, and I just go with that. It's about shaping them. And shaping an experience means, okay, it's about thinking, what experience do I want to have? I'm feeling very demotivated. Where do I want to be? What experience, what feelings do I want to have that then guide my life in a little bit better way? So I have to think about, okay, I'm feeling very demotivated. How can I feel motivated again? How can I feel a little bit of joy, of pleasure, a little bit of smaller success? What can I do to get there? And then think about the next steps of the things that I can do to do that. So currently I'm falling back to working on my voxel engine, because I just love working on voxel engines, and that's just a fun thing for me to do. So I'm trying to do just things that are fun to me. I'm trying to take things a little bit easier. I'm trying to relax a little bit. I'm trying with that to be a little bit more active. So I'm going for a little bit more walks. I'm trying to get back to doing a little bit of yoga again. That I will see if today will be the first day that I can achieve that, but that's kind of the plan. So taking steps of being a little bit more active, doing things that I enjoy. So I create the experience that I want. Because if I do things that make me feel in a certain positive way, I will create an experience that's better for me. And I can't have multiple feelings and experiences at the same time if I'm in a bad experience and mood that doesn't have a source in the here and now that would just not go away. But if it's more so a feeling that's just here and I just have to deal with it and I put it away, I can just kind of override an experience and I can just create the experience that I want and have a better time, have a better life, and that better experience will help me then move in a better and further direction for my life and improve my life further on. That's kind of the big idea. But that only works, like overwriting an experience in that way only works if the negative experience that I'm trying to overwrite and I'm trying to shape in that positive direction is not founded by an issue here. Like if there's some issue that's putting stress on me and that I can't just ignore and it just goes away. Like if there's an actual reason that causes negative feelings and stress or whatever in my life, and it doesn't go away by just doing something else, then this will not work. This whole concept, this whole idea of shaping feelings and experiences will not work. But in my case, where it's very much just a lot of negative experiences that I have are more so out of habits and learned things from my past. So there's no actual source in here and now. The sources of these issues in my life are way in the past, and just learn things that I'm just now passively doing that harm myself. In that case, there's no actual source, so I can just override it. And that's actually what I need to do. I need to override the negative habits that I do that just pull me down and that just make me a little bit more passive and a little bit more unproductive and harm my life. Just saying that in an abstract way here. But if that's the case, I have to override it. If there's actually a source that I have to deal with that causes negative experiences, I need to address that. And then there's not really a way around that. Then this whole thing that I talked about overwriting and shaping an experience, there's something to that too, but not in the way where you can just replace it and ignore the old experience and try to just create a new one to go on and make it better. That way, that just doesn't work. So I think I will leave it at this. This was not the most structured talk, but also not the least one. I have done worse talks on this channel so far. I think the eye contact worked all right. I think it's getting better. At least I'm more aware of it. The hand movement, I think it feels good. I like to use my hands in these talks. It feels very active. I like the feelings. They make me a little bit more, they just feel a little bit more alive. Talking like this, it's fun. It's kind of fun. It's not necessarily that much me. I'm not the big hand gesture talker. But I have to say in videos, so far I always liked it. I always like to be a little bit more expressive with my hands and even potentially even with my body. In my first VR videos with like a virtual body, I really liked it. But I'm rambling on here. I should just wrap it up. So have a nice day.